Welcome, members, officers, members of the public, to this meeting of the Development Committee on the 8th of January 2024. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm goes off, please leave the building in an orderly fashion through the nearest fire exit. Please use the fire exit through the main doors of the hall or the fire exit in the storeroom adjacent to the stage. The fire assembly point is the island in front of the main entrance of the building. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission by council staff. Please switch off mobile phones or turn them to silent. And please note that the meeting will be live streamed. Please ensure your microphone is switched on when speaking and you speak clearly into the microphone. Members of the public and press, while you are of course entitled to film or take photographs during this meeting, can I please emphasise to you that this should be done without disruption to the meeting and can only be done from a designated area in the public seating. Can I please therefore ask you to raise your hand clearly in the air if you wish to take photographs or film this evening? No. I see no hands, thank you. Item 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies for absence from Councillor Brewer and Councillor Lorman. Item 2, substitute members. We have Councillor Cross, who is subbing for Mrs. Brewer. Welcome. Non-members attending? I don't see any non-members. No, thank you. Minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of December 2023. Do I have any matters of fact on that to question? Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest on any item on the agenda tonight, please?
Chairman, I don't know if it's relevant, but I'm an Essex County Councillor, obviously, as well as an RDC Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Rafferty, can you use it? Use your mic, please.
Rochford Parish Council.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Ward, Rayleigh Town Council. I have a non-registrable interest in that the item, which is item 6, I am in the same trade as the applicant, and I know of him. And so that is, I believe, all of the declarations of interest. Now, before we go...
Chairman, can I just say I'm Rayleigh Town Council as well?
Councillor Stanley, Rayleigh Town Council as well, thank you. Can I just say, before we go into any of the reports, I understand that because there was a bit of an IT issue, the appendices that came out this morning, that's the reason being why they're a bit late. Can I just be sure that you've all had a chance to read those appendices? Sorry? Say again?
I haven't. If anything come out this morning, I've been in meetings all day.
Okay, I'm minded under those circumstances to give us 5 or 10 minutes or what it is. I'm sorry, correction, they came out yesterday.
I have read those ones, thank you. But
Right,
I'd say
okay.
they come out yesterday. But if anything come out this morning, I certainly haven't read them.
My
or seen
mistake.
anything.
I do apologise.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've all had a chance to read them. Yep. Okay, thank you. So with that, then we will go on to the item number 6, which is reference 23-00742/full 43 Brook Road, Rayleigh, and ask Katie Rogers to present the report.
Yep, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. So this application relates to 43 Brook Road, a site occupied by an established joinery business. The plan on screen is the submitted location plan, and it's edged red, but it's a bit faint, so I'll just go around it with the light pen. So the front site frontage onto Brook Road is here to the south, and it's a similar width of the rear of that site, which adjoins the residential properties on Woodlands Avenue to the north. The proposal seeks a single-storey rear extension in place of an existing detached outbuilding that's in that position shown with the light pen there. Claire, if you can go to the... Thank you. So the existing floor plan to the top of the screen, I don't know if you can just zoom into that, Claire, slightly. Thank you. Shows that the majority of the floor space of the existing building, so this is all existing, but this is the sort of main building, is occupied by 2 workshop spaces. And the detached outbuilding to the rear, which is this area here, is annotated and in use for storage. The elevation plan, if you could just scroll down, please, Claire. Sorry, to the bottom of that, that's fine. The elevation plan shows the existing detached outbuilding to the rear having a shallow pitch to the roof here. If you can go to the proposed, please, and just zoom into the floor plan. Thank you. So the proposed extension would be in this location here to the rear, and it would replace that existing detached outbuilding that I'd just shown previously. And again, this plan is annotated, showing the proposed use of this floor space as for storage. The extension would have a width the same as the width of the existing building to which it would attach. And if you can just scroll down to the elevation, thanks, Claire. The building proposed would have a pitched roof with the ridge orientated in a different direction and slightly higher, but still step down from the roof of the existing building that it would attach to. The only opening proposed is this set of doors, which is in the elevation that faces east into the site, as it were. There are no windows or openings proposed in the rear elevation, which faces the rear garden boundary of the residential property on Woodlands Avenue. If you can go to the aerial image, please, Claire. Yeah, that's fine. So this aerial image, and if you can see the site is this one, oops, sorry, here. The detached outbuilding that's going to be would be replaced is in the position here. So this aerial image shows the context of the application site, which is part of an established industrial site, but immediately adjoins this residential area to the north and this residential area to the east, part of Rayleigh. A number of the other industrial uses within the estate, you can see, have buildings that are quite close to the residential boundaries of other residential properties nearby. This application seeks planning permission for an extension to replace the detached outbuilding, but it does not seek to change the use of the site. The site has operated as a joinery business for many years, and this is a B2 use, which is the lawful use of the site. We consider that the use is appropriate, so it's the same use and it's appropriate in the industrial location, and the land for the industrial estate is allocated as such to support that kind of economic business interest in the district. Whilst the applicant has indicated on the floor plan that the extension would be used for storage, there would actually be nothing requiring that to only be used as storage unless there was a planning condition imposed. So you will actually note on the addendum that there is actually an additional condition recommended, which seeks to limit the use of if you can go back to the floor plan, please, Claire. So the use of the extension for that stated use for storage only. This would prevent any sort of noisy sort of workshop use or the extension of that workshop into that space. And it would also apply to any other B2 type user that was going to occupy the site in the future, because this applicant seeks it only for storage, but that's not necessarily what another occupier might want in the future. The impact of the proposed development in terms of the scale of the built development on the residential amenities. So if you could go down to that elevation plan again. So if you look here, if we could maybe zoom into that little section there, Claire. So this shows the relationship of the proposed extension to the rear garden boundary of that site that adjoins, and some of the members, I know you've been to the site visit. So this is the demarcating boundary treatment, and then this is the rear garden of that residential property adjoining. So what's been taken into account is the extension or the bringing of that building closer. It replaces an existing building, but this is proposed slightly bigger. But it's considered that in terms of the height, the width, the depth, and the relationships to that boundary, it would not give rise to any harm in terms of unreasonable overshadowing or it being overbearing. Because there are no windows proposed in the rear elevation that would face that boundary, there's no prospect of direct overlooking causing harm to privacy. So in terms of the scale, design and form of the extension, it is considered acceptable. The extension would not be readily visible to the public realm because the Brook Road public part of that site is much further to the south. Given that the extension would replace an existing outbuilding in the same use and wouldn't significantly increase the footprint, we don't consider that there'd be any additional need for any further on-site parking provision. And the recommendation is one of approval subject to the conditions as set out in the report, but as then additional ones on the addendum.
Thank you, Katie. Members, ward members first. Any ward members would like to comment first? Councillor Ward.
I wondered, is there anybody speaking on behalf? Is there anybody speaking with?
Do apologise again. We do have a public speaker on this item. Miss Glenn, please accept my apologies. Come to the mic and you will have 5 minutes to speak from when you start speaking. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members. I'm a resident located immediately behind that property. I've attended the site visit and still object to the planning. Point 30.
Would it help? I realise that this is a very emotional thing for you. Would it help if you've got everything written down there, if someone reads it out for you? A minute.
Chairman, if I may intercede, I do have a copy of this. If Ms. Glenn would like me to read it on her behalf, I would be more than happy to do that. If not, no.
It's got to be the office, isn't it?
I am being advised that if anyone should be reading it out, it should be myself. It's up to you, Miss Glenn. Take your time. No one's forcing you. I've stopped the clock.
Having attended the site visit, I still object to the planning. Point 30 and 31 relate to the pitch and extension height, which is now a lot taller than the existing, which we do not see from our property. The planning officer never visited our property and has completely failed to note that our garden is on a downward gradient and our house sits 1.5 metres above that level. We see more than the whole roof structure currently at ground level, let alone what we see upstairs. The extension is therefore very imposing to us and doesn't reflect the neighbours whose flat roof extension actually only starts from where the wall meets the pitch and then reduces to fence height. This current proposal does detriment our sense of space because it now takes away the only remaining visual buffer that we have from the main building that causes us a lot of grief. The unit offers no boundary wall or green screening to buffer its existence or its operations. Point 21 and 23, unfortunately, there isn't a positive relationship with the local amenity. 5 houses raised complaints and are unhappy due to the joinery's hours of operation, noise and smells. Although I'm told it's not related to this, we are of course talking about an extension which is supplying the very materials that cause all of the grief to us living here. All of this could have been avoided if condition 2 was not breached and instead the applicant had formally applied permission to operate there and that the local authority had neglected in their duty by failing to enforce said conditions. I have documentation from the 1930s up to 1970, which detail that when the houses were built, which was in 1955, first residents moved in 1956. It also details the planning set by this local authority in relation to how that industrial estate would be built, the distance from the current houses to the start of that industrial estate. It also mentions fences and boundaries. All of these things that were considered then, why are they not being considered now? And we still live there. We also work there. We've moved with the times. People work from home as well as live. And we have to endure the constant barrage of noises, smells and dust, being woken up as early as 6:45 daily, Monday to Friday. The summers, 9 months of the year, you open your windows and there's a constant barrage of offensive high-pitched noises and smells. Condition 2 was really important to ensure that the right kind of business operates here to create that harmonious environment and consider the local amenity. We are now enduring the effects of that breach. Other areas that border this industrial estate have a whole woodland. We have nothing, and my remaining visual buffer is now being removed by this building, of which the whole pitch I will see. So point 25, referring to the local authority and enforcement, is kind of insulting and makes a mockery of the system, because there's been a failing by the local authority and continues to be so. Complaints of noise took 1.5 years to be initiated. And when they actually bothered to record the noise 1 year later, they set up broken recording equipment in my property. The building is not fit for purpose of occasion. The walls are not insulated. Just can't do it anymore. The walls are not insulated. The single pitch glass, whereas bringing that building in line with updating, thinking of a carbon footprint or anything, would serve to reduce and make our whole life a lot better. No one's saying to shut down this business. That's not what I'm aiming for here. Bring the whole building up to scratch. There's neighbouring buildings I see in pictures from the mid-60s. They've had their whole buildings wrapped with insulation. I've had my house and window, I've had my whole house wrapped, I've had my whole windows double glazed, and I still hear this constantly, day in, day out, tormenting pictures, the smells.
We have a minute left.
It goes on and on and on. As I mentioned in the site visit, there's no boundary wall, no repair, retaining blocks in complete state of disrepair. I do not understand why businesses next door had to erect a 2-metre wall as part of their planning when they extended. Why are we not being afforded the same thing here to shield us from what goes on there? To prevent, if there's a fire on that skip which is butted up against my fence, where's the protection from a fire? There's nothing there. There's no boundary at all. No boundary wall. They knocked it down and they never reinstated it. It's in a complete mess. There's no mention either on the planning about increased waste and storage of that waste as a result of increasing their capacity. Their smelly waste and sawdust productions not suitably stored, butted up against our fence, which renders the use of that section of our garden. Original planning conditions had strict details around storage of waste being inside that building. And because that was breached, we now have nothing, and there's no end in sight because there's no conditions on there and no one's enforcing anything. So I think that a boundary wall needs to be a condition of this extension. It should be used for storage only with powers of enforcement attached to that. Any change of business, change of use or change of owner should notify the local authority for new conditions to be instated. And why not a 7-year plan so when that owner reaches the age of retirement, if he wants to pursue his business further, that building should be upgraded in line with other environmental upgrades to make us all carbon, go our way towards our net carbon for the future. Wrap the building, bring it up to scratch like other buildings have had to do. That would make a massive difference to the quality of our lives, all living there behind that unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Glenn, and I appreciate you bringing that. You can go back to your seat now if you'd like, and then the committee will discuss the issues. I understand you want to play a recording?
Yes, please.
Okay. You are well over your time, but I will allow it.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you.
This is from my bedroom, inside my bedroom in the morning at 6:45. This is the screeching noise that we hear day in, day out. That's me opening my window. This is the constant screech that goes on and off in line with the compressor that you heard on the site visit, then starting up and going down. My back door, walking to my bench outside my back door. Just sitting at my bench trying to have some peace and a bit of fresh air in the day. Then spraying and the smells.
Okay, I think we get the picture. All right. Thank you very much for bringing that. Thank you, Ms. Glenn. And if you'd like to return to your seat, thank you. There are no visiting members, so ward members, I believe the only ward member who's here is Councillor Ward. If you'd like to bring your points now, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have actually been, obviously, to the site. I've been in Miss Glenn's property. I have heard those noises. Even with the full double glazing, it goes on. It's like a tap dripping, you know, psychological torture. It literally is. It does not stop. I know there's an industry behind there, and I know they've got to work. I know they've got a job to do, but there is noise which needs to be abated. Obviously, I'm very disappointed that our own enforcement failed to enforce over many years. And this goes over many years where there should have been enforcement on that site. They've admitted in the actual report that it's become lawful because they failed to do anything. You know, that's down to us. Our local authority has not done any neighbour any good service in regards to this industrial estate. Originally, there was a buffer. The industrial estate was definitely born subsequent to the housing, and there was a buffer in the original plan that should have been in there, and that was it, because there's the stream and such like. This has not been maintained in any way. There's just been mass encroachment all the way through. So, you know, unfortunately, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, unless we have conditions on here for the whole of the building, I know we're only looking at the extension at this moment, but I feel personally I cannot support this application in any way, shape or form unless we're actually able to do something to make a noise abatement around that building. That's very, very important as far as the neighbours are concerned. Now, I don't know how we script this. I don't know how we do this, but I will be asking for advice on what kind of conditions we can put in there to minimise the noise. Is it a fact that we need to do something around the machinery? Is there something, the decibel levels? You know, we have community halls and things like that, and I believe we've got one coming up later, that would have music there, and they have the decibel meters up there, which will turn everything off, literally. This is something that needs to be taken seriously, and unfortunately, our environmental department had poor equipment. It broke down, it didn't work. And this was after, as she said, it's 18 months. Nearly, she had to wait for it to go in there. When it was put in our home to measure it, to do it officially, It was corrupted. It broke down. You know, this is a real failing on the local authority, and I'm sad I'm a member of it, you know, but I have to call this out. It's a bad failing. But I would like to know exactly what we can do and how we can go about putting in conditions, especially the last one. You know, as far as the extension is concerned, yes, only storage, absolutely, not used for anything else. And I'm glad that's in the addendum. But I think we should have some form of buffering to protect from the noise, whether it's inside the building, outside. I need the officers to come up with something that will help now. We're a bit late to the party, but it doesn't have to be the end. We can actually show we can do something to solve this problem once and for all, and hopefully it can be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Anyone else?
Councillor Shaw.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't able to go to the site visit, but Katie, can you bring up the original where it just shows you? I want to see where the building is to the houses, please. So that first and second slide you put up. So it's the Google map sort of one you put on. Yeah. Is between the industrial units and the houses, is there a fence there or anything? Is there actually a fence or a buffer? Or trees to do anything to mitigate? I wasn't there, so I'm just asking the officers.
I can actually answer that one for you because I was there on
Yeah, okay.
Saturday. There is a 6-foot fence, which is normal
Is
panels
that it,
with.
Chairman, behind you? Oh,
No.
just
No, it's
Yeah.
concrete pillars. Yes, that's it. Concrete pillars and a 6-foot fence between. There was a wall there years ago, and unfortunately, the boundary issue is not part of this,
No.
this planning application. But yes, there is a fence there.
so that's what I want to make sure there was like between that and that. Thank you very much. Oh, right, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Chairman.
Hang on, Councillor Efty first, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to support this, but with a condition of an acoustic fence, which would help, because if we don't support this, it's going to stay exactly the same for the people who live there. So this is an opportunity to make their life a little bit more bearable. So could I put on there as a condition an acoustic fence, because I feel they work very well in Great Wakering with the trading estate there, back gardens of people.
Councillor Ward, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the fence you can see there is actually it's Miss Glenn's fence. It's not, that's her boundary. It's not the boundary that should be there. And the buffer zone, you see the very small buffer zone where the grass is growing. That's the buffer zone, I guess, as best it can be. There should have been a wall. The wall has been knocked down.
Have we proof of that?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Whilst I hear the fundamentals that are going on with this, it is the owner who has turned around and said, and I quote on 6.5, number 27, 28, and 26, the proposed extension will cover the extractor fans and also the noise from the generator. Unfortunately, we can't use that building to cover the noise from the workshop. It is only that building that we are looking at. Now, if that happens to be that enforcement hasn't done it over the years previous, and that's 20 years, let's say, then it's part and parcel of the development that has occurred on making the business what it is. As for the skip, yes, that can be covered, but that's nothing to do with the building as such. That is something for the environmental health officer to decide, or the Environment Agency to decide how to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, you want to come back?
Yeah, please. So, I mean, I sympathise with the concerns that the resident has expressed tonight. But in determining this application, I think what we need to be mindful of is that there is a lawful use of the existing building taking place unrestricted by planning condition in terms of either hours of operation or level of noise that can be generated. So that doesn't mean that noise generated in that building is not for the council to consider, but it falls to be considered through the environmental protection and environmental health team. And what we need to be mindful of, I think, is that this proposal is for an extension that doesn't propose a material change of use. And it's our officer view that the conditions that have been imposed are the maximum extent that we can go to ensure that this extension use, which is proposed for storage only, would not generate any further noise concerns for the resident. It will not address any concerns they have in relation to the noise generated within the existing workshop building. It does seek to enclose those existing extract. So hopefully that would give some benefit in terms of those being enclosed in a kind of robust building now. But any conditions that we seek to impose on this consent, if it's for approval, must meet those tests necessary and related to the development that is proposed tonight, which is for an extension to store timber.
Councillor Constable, you want to come back?
Can we put a condition on there? When we spoke to the owner on Saturday, he said the walls were going to be insulated, which would obviously deaden the sound. But could we impose a condition that the roof is also insulated to some extent, and that would save the noise from going through the roof and going further, as just as a condition of the development, because it's not onerous, and I think it would also go some way to alleviating the sound.
In terms of is your sort of train of thought that noise from, I still think that seeks to deal with noise from the existing workshop use, because what we're suggesting by condition is that the use within this extension will be limited to the storage of building materials. So I get that, you know, insulating the roof of the extension might buffer some noise transfer potentially from the existing workshop building, but I just think that probably wouldn't meet the tests.
Well, I feel that obviously with insulation, they're putting sound insulation in the walls, so that would help deaden the noise. But you've also got the extract unit, which is discharging into that extension, and that is noise that would travel up through the roof.
Sorry.
So if you insulated the roof as well, or you put some form of insulation there, that would just deaden the sound a little bit. And I think it's a very small condition that I don't see any reason why we can't add it.
It might seem a small condition, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but the conditions must meet the tests. And the fact is, those existing extract units are open, okay? So they're not enclosed by a building at present. So simply the building actually as proposed enclosing them should be of benefit. I think what we would seek, that condition would be seeking to potentially, you know, deal with the noise of those existing extract units even further. And I think that goes probably beyond what's reasonable and fairly and reasonably related to an extension to store wood, which an outcome of which is that those extract units are enclosed within that building.
Well, let's agree to disagree on that one then.
Okay, Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chairman. Like many others here, I have every sympathy with the residents adjoining this industrial estate. But Katie's actually answered many of the points that I was going to raise, in that the plan doesn't actually show the extraction ducting, which will be covered by this new extension. So that in itself will mitigate the noise, certainly from the extraction duct. There's only going to be storage in this extension, so that in itself won't generate any noise. I think if I lived in those properties, I'd have some tall conifers there to, you know, to deaden the noise. And I understand there may have been those sort of conifers in place at one stage. That's not really relevant, but if it was me living there, I'd you know, try and establish something like that again. But yeah, I think Katie's really covered all the points I was going to raise. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, now, I've got Councillor Ward. I think you've already had quite a bit of input, so I'll allow one more come back, please.
Can we go back to the actual diagram, please, of the plans? Can we go inside the building? Can you tell me what is going to be separating the timber storage and the main workshop? Is there a dividing wall? There is no entrance from the workshop into that extension at all. Is that correct?
So yeah, that wall there is the existing rear wall of that building. And then the extension is just sort of wrapping around that wall.
Okay, so the timber storage will only be accessed from outside of the building. Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Whether it was a
Thank you,
material
Councillor.
change in the building.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Lefty.
Thank you, Chairman. Going to be a little bit argumentative, Casey. The condition you've put on there for the building to enclose the extractor fans, it seems like the owner has identified that there is a noise problem. So surely if he's identified there is a noise problem, there is a noise problem. So maybe we can firm up a little bit stronger on that, because he's admitted there's a noise problem. And also with it being storage, you're going to have vehicles going down there early in the morning, unloading and loading into that for the storage. So wood is going to be smashing and bashing about there. So don't want to stop them working, but I feel there should be better noise reduction.
Okay, Katie.
Yeah, you know, I do sympathise with this resident. And when you get these uses next to one another, like an industrial estate, right butting against residential, it definitely gives rise to this potential for there to be this, difficulty and tension between those uses interacting with one another. But the fact is that the whole site is authorised for a B2 use as this timber joinery business. So the outside spaces, the existing outbuilding, although it's smaller in footprint, is already used for storage. You're already getting the wood being taken down there at present. So in that respect, I don't think that this proposal introduces anything different. I can sympathise with the idealised view that you could use this application to seek to control the use that's happening on the site further to benefit the existing residents that butt onto the site. But that's just not what the planning we can do in the determination of this application.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I'm going to wrap this up now. I think there's been enough discussion on it. My thoughts on it is that I have every sympathy with Ms Glenn, but we as members of this committee have to be considering this application on the merits of the application. And I think Katie has made that very clear. We do have, members here do have a lot of sympathy for Ms Glenn. When we had the site meeting on Saturday, we had a little bit of a time to have a chat afterwards. And I hope that some of the information and the advice I gave her there is helpful. There are other issues here, but they are not relevant to this application. And I think we need to be careful that we don't actually overstep the mark on here and actually bring ourselves into a bit of a sticky situation. So I need a proposal, someone to propose the approval or otherwise. Councillor Stanley.
I'll accept the proposal for this to be passed. Approved.
Okay, do I have a seconder? And Councillor Shaw, second. Okay, all those in favour, please. Councillor Ward.
But can I know exactly what the conditions are now before I vote?
They're on the report.
They're on the paper.
What about adding on with a change of business, change of tenant with regard to the change of the storage?
So what the conditions, as I understand it, a motion has been tabled to follow the recommendation, which would impose the conditions as set out in the report. So that's the 3 conditions on page 6.7, and then the 2 additional conditions on page 4 of the addendum. So the additional conditions number 4 relates to no mechanical extraction ventilation equipment, no additional windows or doors shall be inserted on any of the external walls or the roof of the extension. So only the double doors that are shown proposed on the eastern elevation. And then condition 5, that the floor space of the extension shall be used solely for the purpose of storage and no other purpose.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take that to the vote. Then we have a proposer and seconder. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Those against, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Okay, that item is approved. I trust that as a result of this, that the problems being highlighted, that ward members will actually take this up and help the neighbour with the ongoing issues. Thank you. Right, moving on now then to item 7. This is planning application 23000829/full, plot 8, Airport Business Park South End, Cherry Orchard Way, Rochford. Claire Buckley will present the report. Over to you, Claire.
So this application is a full planning application for the siting of a commercial unit for B2 and B8 use, along with parking, service yard and landscaping at plot 8, the Airport Business Park South End. The Airport Business Park has had various permissions granted for commercial development since outline permission was granted in 2015, including a Costa Coffee, which is located here, a unit for use by the company Cama, that's going to be located here, 2 units for IPECO, one already constructed here, one underway here. The Launchpad building, so that's the structure that we can see there, and then a collection of buildings known as the Quad, and that's those just here. So the business park itself is located to the east of Cherry Orchard Way, sited between Aviation Way and Cherry Orchard Brickworks. Members will recall recently that Cherry Orchard Brickworks received reserved matters consent for a retirement village, and that's a site that's located just to the north here. And as you can see, this is our application site, outlined in red, just along the bottom here. So the application site is located to the southern boundary with the estate road to the north here. We also have the Quad buildings directly opposite, an access road through to Aviation Way to the east, along with one of the IPECO buildings. And to the west is a green corridor with footpath link, and to the south are industrial units within Aviation Way. So the building would be a rectangular shaped commercial unit with predominantly open warehouse space internally, but also with a 2-storey office to the northwestern corner, just located there. The parking area will be located to the west of the building here with its own access off of the estate road. And the service yard will be to the eastern side of the building, equally with its own access off of the estate road. There would also be a refuse store and parking spaces within this area here, the refuse store there, and then some more additional parking there. There would be soft landscaping to the northern and southern boundaries. So this shows the proposed appearance of the building with light, medium and green-grey cladding colours. There would be glazing to the northwestern corner, so as you can see here, at both ground and first floor level where the office would be located. The building would be 11.85 metres in height. Let's have a quick look at the ground floor of the floor plan. So this is the ground floor plan of the building. It would measure 3,238 square metres in floor area, including the first floor space, which is located directly above the ground floor office. The main building entrance would be located to the western elevation here, and then we've got 3 service accesses here as well. So the key material planning considerations are the principle of development, economic benefits, access, transport and highways, design, layout and appearance, landscaping, flood risk and surface water drainage, sustainable design and BREEAM, ecology and biodiversity, and air quality. So looking at the principle of development, the fundamental objectives of the Council's economic policies in relation to the Airport Business Park has been to promote high quality job creation. In 2022, a permission amended a condition on the 2015 outline consent and provided an upper limit of 10,000 metres squared of BA use. Prior to this, the outline limited the amount of BA to 1,000 metres squared. The restriction was to ensure that BA storage uses do not become the predominant use across the business park, as they do not carry the greatest prospect of creating and supporting higher quality employment opportunities, which was the intention of the business park. Previous decisions have followed the 2015 objectives and sought to prevent the dominance of B8 uses. However, since these decisions were issued, the Council have published the 2023 Economic Development Needs Assessment, which represents new evidence for the emerging local plan. This shows that the forecast need for B8 uses is now likely to be significantly higher than determined in earlier adopted evidence. On this basis, and in light of the evidence on market conditions, it is considered that a departure from policy to enable a B8 use to operate is justified here. However, officers do seek to prevent self-storage by condition, which would not be considered to align with the aspirations of the JAP, only creating quite limited employment numbers. Looking at economic benefits, an economic benefits statement has been submitted, which explains that the proposal will provide 45 to 90 full-time jobs once operational, along with adding financially to the local economy. This, together with the Economic Development Needs Assessment and market demand, further assists in justifying a departure from policy here in officers' view. Looking at access, transport and highways, so the proposal will provide 45 car parking spaces, which includes 3 disabled bays and 10 electric vehicle charging points, and also 22 bicycle spaces. The parking bays meet the minimum standard, but this has been accepted on other plots within the Airport Business Park site. A draft travel plan has been submitted along with a servicing and deliveries plan. County highways raised no objections, subject to conditions. These have been imposed within the recommendation, but the monitoring fee for the travel plan would be subject to a unilateral undertaking that the agent has agreed to submit. Design, layout and appearance. So the design approach using cladding of varying grey colouring is consistent with that which has been previously consented across the business park and incorporates the use of high quality and contemporary materials that are durable yet appropriate for the proposed use. With regards to layouts, the design code for the outline application illustrated 2 built forms either side of the site and centrally placed parking for this plot. Whilst it would have been more beneficial for the unit to front the biodiversity corridor, the current proposals are broadly in line with the design code for this plot and are considered acceptable. There are missed opportunities to provide outdoor seating and tables within the layout for staff, but a condition requiring this to be provided has been included with the recommendation to address this. On landscaping, so the hard landscaping proposed uses a mixture of concrete, bitumen macadam and permeable block paving. Soft landscaping includes new tree planting, new grassed areas, ornamental shrub planting, hedge planting and native buffer mix. A metal perimeter fence is also proposed for security. A condition requiring implementation of the landscaping has been attached to the recommendation, including the need for a greater quantum of trees and improvements to the soft landscaping proposed. On flood risk and surface water drainage, the drainage layout submitted shows a proposal to provide geocellular storage, permeable paving and filter drains and to discharge at the desired controlled rate. County Lead Local Flood Authority do not object to the proposed drainage scheme, subject to conditions which have been attached to the recommendation. On sustainable design and BREEAM, so the BREEAM pre-assessment submitted confirms that the scheme would achieve a rating of very good. It is not viable for the scheme to meet the excellent rating, and in consideration of other developments on the airport site, this rating is considered acceptable. Looking at ecology and biodiversity, so the ecological appraisal submitted concludes that the overall impact is considered to be neutral. And finally, on air quality, an air quality assessment has been provided with the application. This recommends measures to minimise construction phase dust emissions, but overall concludes that no mitigation measures are required. So the recommendation is that Planning Permission be approved, subject to the applicants entering into a unilateral undertaking to provide for the monitoring of a workplace travel plan, including relevant fee, and subject to the conditions within the officer's recommendation and the amendments and additional conditions identified within the addendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. There is one speaker on this report. Mr. Dimond is speaking in support of the application. If you'd like to come to the microphone. You have 5 minutes from when you start to speak, and I'll give you a minute's warning when you get to the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Diamond. I'm a partner at Knight Frank, and I've been HBD's planning advisor on the Airport Business Park since 2014. If I can start by thanking your officers for the positive recommendation and for their assistance throughout the planning process. Despite COVID, the Trust mini budget and the current economic slowdown, HBD have delivered in excess of 35,000 square metres of employment floor space across the business park, capable of accommodating in the region of 1,000 jobs. B2 and B8 application before you this evening responds to the current demand and will allow our client to continue to deliver the flexible, high-quality employment space capable of responding to future demand. I'd also reiterate that the design of the proposal is in keeping and of a similar design palette as that already on the site. This is a well-balanced employment sector delivering increased productivity, diversity in roles and higher earnings. Recent research by the British Property Federation has highlighted the focus on more technical roles in management, analytics, IT and engineering, alongside above average earnings within the sector. As acknowledged by your officers and the updated 2023 employment evidence, logistics and warehousing, along with the flexible permissions as proposed this evening, can support a range of highly skilled, productive occupations without impacting upon the role or function of the business park. Once completed and fully occupied, it's estimated that the proposed development could accommodate between 45 and 90 direct full-time jobs, plus additional employment through construction, management, and more widely through the supply chain. In conclusion, the proposal before you will deliver further complementary offerings at the Airport Business Park, deliver significant economic and employment opportunities to the district, and help to ensure its continued growth and resilience, and contribute to the Council's wider aspirations of delivering new jobs and growth to the district. We therefore ask that you follow your officers' recommendations and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dimond. If you'd like to return to your seat. I don't believe we have any ward councillors here, do we? There's no non-members or visiting members, I should say, here to speak. So straight over to members. Councillor Rafferty.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you just tell me where the travel plan, where's the nearest bus stop? Is there a bus that actually goes down there?
No, I believe it's something that's in negotiation, but is not currently in
Right,
existence.
so I'd like to make a proposal on this, that the Essex County Council get their £6,000 when a bus goes within 100 metres of where it goes. Other than that, because they just ask for this money and got no intent, never seem to have any intention of putting any sort of viable travel alternative other than cars or bikes. And we've already built all the infrastructure for the bikes, and the person's building the spaces for the electric cars and the cars. So I'd like to see a little bit of incentive for Essex County Council to actually do some work for this money for their travel plan, which they've insisted on having.
So can you just clarify exactly what you're asking for, please?
Right, the 106, which is like £6,383, where Essex County Council have asked for a travel plan, which it can't work because there's no bus route or buses that go down there.
My question is how are you asking for that to be held back?
Yeah, held back into a bus,
until
actually goes near
there?
it. Yeah.
Okay, is that possible?
Essex County Council Highways are the ones that obviously provide us with the advice and guidance on what appropriate mitigation is necessary for certain developments. In this case, they have proposed quantum of money to monitor specifically the travel plan. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to ask for them to provide that money or for that money to go towards a different area, because it's for them to decide where that money is put to, that they are requesting and they are saying is necessary to mitigate any harm.
Chairman, can I just come in? I won't be able to do anything on this because I'm Essex Highways, and I'm also on the sustainable travel, and I'm also running the buses. So
Okay.
I'm afraid I will sit on this, but I will not be able to vote or make any comment.
Understood, and I think that will apply to the next item as well then?
Yeah, I'll just make sure that you're aware that I will not be able to do this. Okay.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that.
Councillor Stanley.
Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chair. We have on page 7.5, sustainable drainage. And I refer to where it says limiting discharge rates of 2 litres per second. That's not the actual flow rate of, it should be less than 2 litres per second, I believe. And in the event of storm, which we are having storms quite concurrently on top of one another, and 1 in 100 years is not quite what we are talking about. It doesn't work like that. I only wish it would, but it doesn't. With the amount of roof space over that, I would like to see if it's possible to do some sort of plantation, if you like, where we have attenuation ponds, some sort of plantation instead of just the perimeter that we've got of the building on this screen at the moment. I'd like to see something put in. Where it could be put in, I don't know, but the Essex County Council, with their flood alleviation programme that they've got, and they've recently done some work on this where a container of, if you like, attenuation is underneath the plantation on top. I don't see as though there is much there that you can put that water to.
So your question is?
So my question is there room for any of the attenuation ponds or attenuation tanks or whatever? I don't know what it is that goes into the ground, because it's a site that's been filled in, and if water gets into that will cause quite a bit of disruption to the ground. And I just have feelings that the attenuation tanks won't be big enough.
Claire.
So just in response to your very first point about the discharge rates, so that information, that these conditions we've imposed with regard to sustainable drainage have come direct from Essex County Lead Local Flood Authority. So they're specifically what they consider appropriate for this site. So that's come from our sort of specialists on that with regards to the discharge rates. The actual attenuation pond, so there wouldn't be the capacity on the actual plot that we're looking at itself to be able to accommodate attenuation ponds, but what they have put forward is what County Lead Local Flood Authority considers to be appropriate drainage, because they are proposing attenuation basins underneath or geocellular storage, the other phrasing for it, underneath the ground, which would hold water and then would discharge it very slowly to the necessary drainage points from that. And we've also got permeable paving that will be across the parking spaces as well. So that collectively is considered to represent appropriate surface water drainage for the site.
Yes, Chairman, just coming back, it doesn't mean to say that the Flood Authority at Essex County Council know what they're doing, because we are having a meeting with them as I speak next week or next fortnight for them to evaluate what we're talking about. It's just that it seems that we have asked builders on sites to put in more than what they think is adequate. And we've asked them to put another 10% or even 20% in some cases. And I just have a feeling that because the site is an infill with materials underneath, that once the water gets into that infill, it will cause a lot of problems not only for the drivers, because the water can't go anywhere, and you need to make more of attenuation ponds than you think is necessary. That's where I finish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the issues that I have with that, although I understand your point, is that we don't have the expertise on the committee here to be able to challenge that from the point of view of actually having the experts, whatever you think of them, Essex, who do hold the final say on these particular issues. I think it's a question that could be asked, but I don't think it's something we could deal with tonight. I don't know. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, I mean, As well to note, this condition 12 does require details of the actual sustainable drainage to be submitted to and agreed. So it's still not finally actually rubber stamped, you'd say, in terms of the actual drainage arrangements on the site. But having said that, there is not the capacity on this actual footprint to provide like attenuation basins like what we might have on some obviously bigger major development schemes where they can obviously all be incorporated in. We also have the biodiversity corridors, and actually I don't know if there's any attenuation ponds on those elements on the site or not already. I can't confirm that for definite, but I'm just looking at the location plan, and obviously we've got swaths here, and I don't know whether they're, I'd have to sort of look up a lot of the history to know for definite, but the plot itself, whilst we do still need to agree the surface water drainage details, what we have seen so far in terms of what's been submitted is considered a county legal authority.
Can I just come back, Chairman?
One
Those
more.
ponds that you've just indicated, they are there for that development of that. And if the water is released from this site and goes into those ponds, they'll be overflowed. They will be redundant. They're not holding anything. They're only holding enough for that site, not another site on top. And that's the reason why I'm asking for more detail in the attenuation and whether or not, where's that water going to go in actual fact? If it goes into those ponds, then they'll be overloaded and therefore we will have problems with that water. And so I would ask specifically more details on that and how we can make it more redundant, more sustainable.
Okay, I think from what I've heard, it is something that actually still has to be worked on.
Yeah.
So they are things that maybe you can question through the process with our planners to see on the process. But I think we do have to rely on our planners to be able to actually come up with the right answer for it. But yeah, point made, understood. Councillor Constable.
Thank you. Can I, when I was reading through it, this office is a speculative build. Does that mean we don't know, or the site is speculative, it said in the plans, does that mean we don't know who the occupier is and what it's going to be used for?
Correct. They're seeking permission for B2 or B8, but there is not an intended occupier at the moment. So we don't know exactly what the company would be or how they would operate, but it would be a B2, B8 flexible use. So anybody who would fall within the B2 or B8 could come in and use that site.
Thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just following on from Councillor Constable's query about speculative nature of this. I'm actually very pleased that money is being invested to be able to do this, but I am disappointed. I've seen nothing in regards to net zero on this building whatsoever. I've not seen any encouragement to put solar totally through on the roof and the use of grey water at all. I've not seen that. I mean, this has come up with Councillor Stanley. There could have been tanks put in there to use grey water throughout the building, and there should also be net zero. This is a great opportunity by the developer to actually make this a state-of-the-art building where he's actually now using net zero as one of his marketing tools. I think it's a great thing that they're doing to put this into place to encourage businesses in. As you say, it's going to be up to B8, but I would love to have seen solar on there. And I would say, and I would recommend, you can't force a developer to do that, but I would suggest it would improve their chances of marketing this building if they do. Thank you.
Do you want to come back on that at all, Claire?
So we do have condition 6, albeit I know it's not solar panels, but condition 6, which is on page 7.3, is relation to BREEAM, which requires that level of very good, which again is all about sort of sustainable design and trying to make sure sustainability in the design process of a build. There isn't admittedly a condition with regards to solar panels, but I think if members were minded to approve the application, it's something that we could add as a condition to require details to be submitted to and agreed with regards to solar panels on the site.
Thank you. I would like that to be considered.
Yeah, Yvonne.
Yeah, just to add, Councillor Ward, that in the officer's report on page 7.22, it actually says that this proposed building will meet a EPC rating of A. And to achieve that, obviously, then there would need to be, you know, the materials that are actually used in the building itself would make it highly sustainable with a rating of A. So just,
If I may come back on that. Thank you
Okay,
very much,
Councillor
Chairman. Obviously, with car charging and various other things, that will be increased. I know they've got charging points that they're actually facilitating on site. It obviously makes it worthwhile if you are actually creating electricity from that surface. It does make it viable, far more viable to actually do that. So I'm sure that the developer who is listening now will probably wish to put that as a suggestion going through. Thank you.
Yvonne?
yeah, sorry, just reviewing the fact that the building does seek to achieve an EPC rating of A, and the design of the building is actually a flat roof building. Actually installing solar panels as such actually wouldn't look too attractive. So I don't think we could encourage that. I think the fact that they're actually stating here that it will be at that higher rate of energy and sustainable materials being used in its construction, I think that that's actually sufficient. Thank you.
Councillor Cross?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, since that we don't know who the occupier is going to be, it may not be relevant for them to have solar panels. If it's not a power-hungry business, then why should they pay for something they're not going to take advantage of, is my view. I mean, it's something that if they required help with their energy costs, then the occupier, whoever that might be, would install the solar panels and any other energy-saving system, heat pumps, etc., that they wanted to. But we don't know who the occupier is going to be, so it's just adding cost and making it less attractive and unsightly, as Yvonne says, in my view. Thank you.
Councillor Stanley?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to go back with the water situation, can we make a condition of using rainwater as wastewater in the building to collect that? Because that would help a great deal, obviously, to everybody, to the environment and also to the owner of the building, I would have thought. Thank you.
Sorry, bear with me. Okay, I'm being advised, page 7.5 of the report, when we go down to the sustainable drainage, about halfway down, there's a, hang on, let me turn it up. Under sustainable drainage, we get down to the third bullet point from the bottom, detailed engineer drawings of each component of the drainage scheme. That has the possibility of being considered under that. That's the advice I'm being given. So it looks like it's covered. Sorry,
Chair. There's also. Also be captured, but the case officer may have more detail.
Okay, page 7.3 as well, sustainable design under BREEAM, item 6. It may well be covered on that as well, but I'm advised that the officers may be able to advise on that.
Yes, I think looking at those two conditions, I think it could potentially be covered in either of those areas, I think, sufficiently. Probably
Okay.
more so the drainage one rather than the BREEAM one, I think.
Yeah, okay. Happy? Councillor FD.
Thank you, Chairman. I've actually no problem with this development. I might suggest that we have a training course and remind the councillors what is covered in the BREEAMs, because a lot of these questions seem to be unnecessary if you actually understand what's covered in them.
I think that is a live topic at the moment. So, yes, we can deal with that outside the meeting, obviously. But yes, good point. Okay, I think I'm minded to move to a vote. Are we all talked out? Yep. Okay. Right. So the recommendation is to approve the application subject to conditions set out in the report. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Wilson, seconder. Councillor Constable. Thank you. All those in favour? I believe that is unanimous with the note of Councillor Shaw, who's standing out the vote. Okay, thank you. So, moving on. Item 8. This is application 23-00715/full, plot 13, Airport Business Park, Southend, Cherry Orchard Way, Watford. And Claire, back to you again.
So this application is a full planning application for the siting of a commercial unit for B2 and B8 use, along with parking, service yard and landscaping at plot 13 to the Airport Business Park Southend. So this proposal is very similar to that just considered at plot 8, with the uses proposed being the same. The application site is located in a central position, as you can see outlined in red here. Follow my cursor. With the estate road to the north and curving around to the east, and part of the green biodiversity corridor with footpath links just to the south along here. To the west is an undeveloped commercial plot, so that's just located here. So the building will be a rectangular shaped commercial unit with predominantly open warehouse space internally, but also with a ground floor reception lobby and then office space above at first floor to the eastern elevation. So just here and along this section here. There are 2 parking areas. One will be located to the east of the building, accessed from the estate road, so that's this section here, and another would be accessed direct through the service yard, just located to the north of the building here. So the service yard, again, would just be to the west side here, and then within the service yard area, we have refuse stores just located there. And a substation as well was also located to the northern boundary just here. There would be soft landscaping to all boundaries with a greater quantum to the northern edge. So this shows the proposed appearance of the building with mid-grey, dark green and some feature white cladding colours. There will be glazing to the eastern elevation where the office and reception area will be located, so you can see the quantum of glazing proposed there. And it was also wrap around slightly around the northern and southern elevations. The building would be 10.6 metres in height. So this shows the ground floor plan of the proposed building. It would measure 3,765 square metres in floor area, including the first floor space. The main building entrance would be located to the eastern elevation, so just here, then with 3 service door accesses here from the service yard area. And then finally, Plan 5. So this shows the first floor plan where there are 2 large office spaces to the entire length of the eastern elevation. So you can see just slightly more office spacing than what we saw at plot 8, just located here. So the key material planning considerations are the principle of development, economic benefits, market demand, design, layout and appearance, landscaping, flood risk and surface water drainage, access, transport and highways, air quality, ecology, sustainable design and BREEAM, health impacts, heritage and archaeology. Many of the material considerations that were referred to within the previous application presented to members for plot 8 have the same conclusion for plot 13. So I don't intend to repeat this within this presentation, and members will have had sight of the officer's recommendation, but I will explain to members some of the relevant differences. So with regards to economic benefits, so an economic benefits statement has been submitted, which explains that the proposal would provide 55 to 105 full-time jobs in comparison to the 45 to 90 at plot 8. So this is reflective of the slightly larger unit size, and it remains officers' view that this, along with the other matters already raised, assists in justifying a B8 permission here. Looking at access, transport and highways, the proposal would provide 70 car parking spaces here, which includes 4 disabled bays and 14 electric vehicle charging points, along with 24 bicycle spaces. Again, this is reflective of the slightly larger unit size and is in accordance with the parking standards. And then finally, flood risk and surface water drainage. So the drainage layout submitted shows a proposal to provide surface water attenuation and storage. County Lead Local Flood Authority initially raised a holding objection, but this was resolved and they now no longer object to subject to conditions which have been attached to the recommendation. So the recommendation is that Planning Commission be approved, subject to just a number of things. So the applicants entering into a unilateral undertaking to provide for the monitoring of a workplace travel plan, including relevant fee, again, like with plot 8. Also subject to the conditions within the officer's recommendation, including the amendments and additional conditions identified within the addendum. But just two, and again, so that's the same as plot 8, but on top of that as well, just 2 other things. Also subject to the removal of the wording cited by condition 12, which is on page 8.6. It's just had a wrong reference of condition on there, so we're just proposing to change that to cited by condition 11 instead, which will then correctly refer to the right archaeological condition, which that particular condition relates to. And just the addition of 1 further condition we're looking to impose, and that's requiring floor elevation and material details of the substation to be submitted to and agreed prior to works commencing to construct the substation. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. We have 1 speaker on this item again, and that again is Mr. Dimont. If you'd like to take your seat, and as before, you'll have 5 minutes. I'll give you 1 minute warning at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to take up any more of anyone's time than is necessary this evening. Just to reiterate, I think picking up some of the points that the presentation made here in relation to SUDS, it's the same situation that we had on the previous plot. This has been satisfied with Essex County Council as the lead flood authority. We do have to submit mitigation further details going forward, so that will be considered. Similarly, this is a speculative scheme, but as with both schemes, there's a number of ongoing discussions with operators. These proposals are coming forward responding to demand. And also I'd pick up the same points regarding the sort of the sustainability and how a lot of these issues have been taken into account in achieving the BREEAM Very Good and the EPC ratings. So again, I would just ask that you follow your officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, it refers again to me. I'll be able to vote because I'm also doing the SUDS as well as flooding and sustainable transport. Thank you. So
Okay. Yeah, and you'll be excused from voting on this one as well. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Constable.
As this application is very similar to the former, I'd like to propose that we go straight to a vote, and I would propose that this proposal is passed.
Yeah. Can I just suggest that if there are any questions that are not repeating what we've heard before, that we have hear those questions first?
As long as it's not repeated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will stop any repeat. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't repeat the SUDS situation, but what I will ask is that with so many cars parked on the surrounding area, is there going to be, and I don't know if we can enforce it, some sort of filter situation where the contaminants from the vehicles that are now going to be really pushing out some contaminants, whether a filter system can be incorporated, and can we make that as a condition, as we made it as a condition to a football club not more than 1 mile away from this point where I'm standing, or sitting rather. So I just wondered if we can make that condition, please.
I'm not really quite following that, but maybe Claire, if you could come back on that.
So I think, again, that does interlink in with the surface water drainage, which is all about making sure that pollutants from these hard surfaces that are being collected in the attenuation tanks aren't then obviously dispersing straight into the attenuation ponds or nearby streams or anything like that. And that would all be dealt with as part of the overriding drainage conditions that we've got imposed on the recommendation.
And I say that, Chairman, is that SUDS recommend that swales, filter strips, basins and ponds and wetlands should be incorporated. 2.6 on page 8.25.
Okay, I would suggest then, if it's already in the report, that is going to be covered. Yeah, okay. There is one question I do have. With the electric car charging points, am I right in thinking they're all in the eastern car park, not in the northern?
Yes, it's these collection here, I believe, that are in this southern corner here. Sorry, yes, so, yeah, the eastern
Okay,
area.
is there, it seems as though we're segregating out the one sort of type of vehicle, which it looks to me like the people who are going to be working in the factory, effectively the manual workers, they're going to be in the car park that has got no charging points. I was just wondering if there was any way that we could actually request that some of those charging points are put in the other car park as well. Whether it just is better distribution, that's all I'm thinking around the car parks.
We have, so condition 8 does require them to actually submit details around the electric vehicle charging anyway. So we do still need to agree where the infrastructure is going to go on the site with regards to that and details of that and how it's going to be laid out on site. So that could still be covered by that condition 8, I think, in terms of trying to disperse them. If I suppose obviously as well if the infrastructure allows, because I suppose there's also a consideration around maybe collect them together as well for other reasons, but
I
it could be
understand
covered under that
there
condition.
would be a cost issue on that. I understand, but it does strike me as being a little bit more measured use of the car park area, let's say. Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much. It again is just with regard to solar flat roofs. There is no reason why solar cannot be put on flat roofs, and we should be aiming for net zero. I'd hope that would be some form of recommendation that is within it, and that covers BREEAM. Probably very good doesn't, but excellent does. Thank you.
I think, to be fair, we have covered that issue in the previous application. Any other questions? Councillor Efty.
I'd just like to second Councillor Constable's recommendation that we move to the vote.
Okay, we have a proposer and seconder, therefore we will go to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I believe that is unanimous again. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the last item now. This is the Rochford Recreation Ground Pavilion, application 23003424. And Katie Rogers will present. Thank you.
Thank you. So Claire, could you just zoom into the location plan that's in the sort of bottom, if you can just make that sort of fill the screen, please. Thanks, that's fine. Thank you. So this application relates to the Pavilion building, which is shown by the light pen there, at Rochford Recreation Ground, and it's located just off Stanbridge Road and to the south. And the red line site you can see includes the existing Pavilion building and a small sort of area of land around the building. And then an elongated or a narrow stretch of the red line site extends to the car park that's just outside the site boundary to the east. The remainder of the recreation ground you can maybe just make out is edged blue. So that's the wider site. And you can see that there are residential properties bordering that wider site to the north, to the west, and to the south. The existing building is single storey, and the proposal is for a single storey extension to the front and side of that building. Go to the proposed plan, please, Claire. Yeah, thank you. So this is the proposed roof plan. And a dashed orange line shows the extent of the existing sort of flat roof. So in this area here, that's the extent of the existing building on the site. And you can see that the proposed extension is this L shape here, and it would have a depth off the front wall of approximately 4 metres. It would have a width off this western elevation of approximately 15 metres. If you can take me to the next, the proposed, there you go, yeah. So the plan in the centre of the screen is the proposed floor plan. If you can just zoom into that a little bit, Claire. Okay, so you might just be able to make out that dashed orange line again. So this area here is the extent of the existing building. And the layout of the existing building would remain largely unchanged. So these existing changing rooms here remain unchanged. The only minor changes to the layout of the bar and sort of some sort of storage area in this location here. The proposed extension there then would add 2 changing rooms in this part of the building here. It would create additional sort of sitting area and extend the bar, which is in this position here. And it would add additional toilets and then a separate storage area in this western part of the building here. You can just scroll down on that plan, please. Yeah, thank you. So towards the bottom of the screen are the proposed elevations. And in terms of design, the proposed extension would reflect the form of the existing building with a sort of very shallow, almost flat roof. The external walls would be rendered. The proposal would include new and altered fenestration to the front elevation. So this is the front elevation here, which faces into the recreation ground. And altered fenestration and new fenestration to the rear. So this rear elevation is closest to that northern boundary, adjacent to which in fairly close proximity is the rear garden of those neighbouring residential dwellings. So most of the windows in this rear elevation, so that's that bottom one here, in the existing part of the building would remain the same. So that's this door here, these sort of shallow windows here, except this window here. This one is an existing window, but it's proposed to be replaced by a slightly deeper window, and that's proposed as a serving hatch. In terms of the new part of this, so the extension that's proposed, so this is a double door in the rear elevation and a single window. There's no fenestration proposed on the side elevation. So the extension, if you can just go up to the floor plan again, Claire, would increase the floor area of the building quite substantially. So you see that all of this is existing, it would over double the floor area of the building. An unrestricted use may give rise to the potential for increased impact on the residential amenity of the occupants of nearby residential properties by way of noise disturbance. You'll see on the recommendation that a condition is recommended to restrict the use of the extended building to between 9 and 11 p.m. on any day. The same extent of paving, so if you can see on that plan here, this is the proposed, but there is the same proportion of paving to the front and to the side and to the rear on the existing building. So what this does, it seeks to just create the same depth of paving around the extension and just extend it along the rear elevation up to this point here. And then if you can go to the proposed site plan, please, Claire. Yeah, so in addition to that paving that's proposed around the extended building, all along this line here is a new footpath. So at the moment, this is just grass, but in inclement weather, this can, get muddy or whatever. So this is proposed to be a tarmac surface along that footpath there. And you can see on this plan, there are a number of trees close to this footpath that will be hard surfaced, and a tree protection plan has been submitted and an arboricultural impact assessment to make sure that the impacts of that hard surface wouldn't adversely affect any of those existing trees. Only at a couple of points would that proposed surface sort of venture into the root protection area of those trees, and you'll see that there's a condition that the council's arboricultural officer is satisfied with that seeks to control the working methods for the laying of that surface in those particular areas. So the proposed extension of the clubhouse would enhance the available facilities for the existing leaseholder of the site, which is Rochford Town Sports and Social Club. The extension and hard surfacing around the building would encroach onto the playing field. And because of that allocation of the site as open space, there is a requirement for consultation with Sport England, but they raise no objection. The actual sports pitches are further away, so this proposal doesn't impact on that directly in any way. The recommendation is therefore one of approval, subject to the conditions as set out in the report, but you will notice that there are some additional amendments to those conditions in the addendum as well.
Thank you, Katie. Ward members, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Katie, for this. This is so needed. and I certainly would recommend it. I have spoken to people who use this. It is small. It is needed to be extended for the amount of people that do use it. There is adequate car parking by the of Stillwell, so there's not a problem. If we put more people in there, there is plenty of car parking space. That I have been down there and asked when it's the football not to use the side roads, and they've been very good, and they've come back in. And it's always full, but it's overflowing. And that's why I think residents have a problem with the noise, because they cannot be in the clubhouse. There's not enough room. As Katie said, with the sports fields, if they extend it, it will not stop the football going ahead. There's plenty enough room to the side of it. So I certainly would recommend this for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a clarification on the plans. Can I just understand where the serving hatch is going to be? Is it going to be on the neighbour's side or on the other side and the front entrance? Because if the serving hatch is going to be towards 28 and 30, would that not be a disturbance if people are being served from that side? Just need to understand, because you said on that rear side, there's serving hatches.
Katie?
Sorry. Yeah, you might want to zoom in. It's quite difficult to see, but essentially it's on that rear elevation. Okay, so it is on the rear elevation that does, it is opposite that boundary of the site with those residential properties. It's single story. There are boundary treatments there. You know, we don't anticipate that that is going to cause nuisance. There are conditions as stated which control the hours of operation. So we are satisfied that we think the amenity of those existing nearby residential properties would be appropriately protected.
May I come back?
Yes, Councillor Ward.
All I was considering is the simple fact that if there's a serving hatch, the serving hatch is designed from behind the bar, which I guess is the bar area, to serve people outside who are going to be congregating in that area. Not going to be around the front, they're going to be around the back, right by the neighbours. I think that that's probably a touch too far. I'm very happy with this. I'm very happy with what's going on. I'm not happy with the fact that you're going to end up, no matter all the best will in the world, everybody is going to be behind, smoking, laughing, joking, drinking their beer outside, right on top of those houses. And I feel that that's inappropriate. And I wouldn't be happy with the serving hatch being there. That's all.
Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, a couple of things there. The windows that actually look out over to the neighbours, will they be all obscure windows? And again, that serving hatch, which has just been brought by Councillor Ward. As the property at the moment doesn't have adequate parking, to put a bigger property on and have more people there, would it still have adequate parking for that? And the other thing is that 9 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night doesn't give much, and 7 days a week, might I say, doesn't give much respite to the neighbours. I would like that restricted somewhat, at least during the week. We have the similar sort of problem with football, in as much as people want to park everywhere and the noise is horrendous. It's getting to a situation where there is no peace for the neighbours. And I'd like to see that restricted somewhat to a better times during the week, maybe 10 o'clock, and at weekends, 11 o'clock, if that's okay.
Can I just ask, have there been any objections from the neighbours to this application?
I think 2.
Oh, if you'd like to come back on that, yes, please.
Yes, okay. So in relation to the use, You'll see on the addendum that the planning history of the site is referred to, and there's nothing recent, really. But there are conditions on the 1987 consent which allowed the bar to be included within the floor space, and that's that existing bar. It's quite small. That you'll see. Well, it's not on the existing floor plan because I haven't got that on screen, but there's an existing bar allowed under the 1987 consent, and that was subject to a condition that the bar use only be allowed to operate between the hours of 9 and 11 p.m. Okay. Now, that condition was quite specific. It only related to the bar use, so it essentially people could still be in the building. So what this actual application does is it increases the floor area quite substantially. So what we've recommended is a condition that is 9 to 11, but that is not just the bar, the whole use. So that must cease at 11. And that 9 to 11 is consistent with the premises license that currently operates and has operated at the site for many years. I've spoken to the licensing officer. There's been no review of that license because there's been no need to, because there's been no noise. I think like a certain number of noise complaints might instigate a formal review of that license, and there hasn't been anything like that. So according to the licensing team, they're satisfied that 9 to 11 works sufficiently in this location to, control the use in respect of the nearby residential properties. So actually imposing the planning condition would seek to mean that people could only be using that extended building between 9 and 11. It's consistent with the license, and we don't think it would be fair to impose a narrower time frame, given that the existing building, albeit a smaller footprint, can actually operate, although they're not allowed to sell alcohol or play music after 11 p.m. as it currently stands.
Thank you. Hang on, Councillor Cross first, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have to agree with Councillor Ward. The inclusion of a serving hatch on the north side implies and encourages, obviously, serving of customers outside that particular location. So it's encouraging maybe a new used area for congregating and having drinks, and the noise that accompanies that. Also the fire exits in the new part of the building. I would like to see a condition imposed there that door is kept closed during the summer months. And I can imagine that when it's hot, they'll want that door open, and there's going to be music and loud conversation and etc. in that part of the building. So although there's been no noise objections thus far, they haven't had two major entrances and exits on that north side of the building. So there may well be objection. We're just, I think there'll be objections going forward if that serving hatch and, encouraging people outside to congregate at that serving hatch. So can we impose a condition where the exit doors are kept closed and the serving hatch is not put in?
Can I suggest that we've got quite a few speakers on it. Katie, if you can make a note of the questions that are coming, and then if I can come back to you after everyone's had a say. Yeah, okay, thanks. Councillor Constable.
I was going to propose that the condition of planning consent would be the removal of that serving hatch, and a condition that no alcohol is taken to the rear of the property. As
I think there's a bit of a crossover there to licensing. I'm not sure whether that's a planning issue. I'm not sure. I'll take advice on that. But Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. It has been suggested to me that maybe we could ask for a condition to go on to limit the hours that the serving hatch is open for. And I don't know if it's possible, but maybe we could do that with the fire exit or the doors at the rear as well. Thank you.
Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got no problem with this as it stands, absolutely none. The serving hatch is probably there because they found a use for it. There doesn't seem to be very much room for people to sit down or have picnics around there to make loads of noise. It just looks like they get drinks or something on a Saturday morning and wander off somewhere else. So I can't really see a problem with it. And if there is a problem, it'll be done under licensing. Someone will make a noise complaint and it will be investigated by a licensing authority. Same as a lot of the other problems there, what we seem to be suggesting aren't really problems to be dealt with by us. They're dealt with by the police, with noise and other bits and pieces, which is all in the report. I'm quite happy to support this. So I don't want us laymen put in conditions which, okay, we might assume, but assuming is not the best, sometimes the best thing to do. We should leave it to our statutory officers to deal with these other things later if there are complaints.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Just one point. This application, they feel that they do need a serving hatch. There is obviously problems where other members think it shouldn't be at the back. Perhaps we could, instead of saying having a condition that says remove it, could we have asked them if it could be recited? That's just a thought. Thank you very much.
Katie,
I might just come back on the few. I know there's more, but if you can, is that okay? So I think in relation to the serving hatch, thanks, Claire, but they put if you zoom in even a little bit more on that proposed floor plan, please, because the serving hatch is directly related to the kitchen. So I think it's going to be problematic to try to move that. And my inclination is that the way this would operate, although, you know, I know this is not necessarily going to be the case always, but it would allow, you know, the serving of food, so like you know, breakfast bun or whatever it is when you're rocking up to the site early morning or something on the roof, when maybe the whole building is not open. Because why would you use a serving hatch when you've got access to the actual seating area to allow people in? So it would seem that this is just to enable that use, maybe when the whole building isn't open. And, you know, I think we're satisfied that wouldn't be unreasonable in this scenario. I think what we also have to be mindful of in terms of imposing conditions about in relation to the doors is there are existing doors in the building. So yes, the floor area is increasing and allowing more people in there, but there is the condition that says it's limited to 11 p.m. and the license for selling, although that's only limited to alcohol, would maybe have to be reviewed in the case of noise complaints and the opening of those fire doors. I think there was mention of conditions limiting the sale of alcohol being brought round to the rear of the property, and I just don't think that's enforceable because planning officers aren't going to be able to enforce that, you know, every day or every evening or whenever that happens. We can't control people's kind of movements around that building. That's for different authorities if that causes a problem. And I think there was mention of this might have been a little bit previously, but I think I've cobbled together some notes of all questions to come back to. Adequate parking, you know, is set out in the report. We are satisfied that there would be adequate parking in the car park that the councillor has referred to, which is just off to the east off Stillwells. It's quite a large car park, so we don't think there'll be any concern there. So I think in terms of these openings in the rear elevation, I think officers are minded to say that this relationship doesn't seem to cause any problem at present, and there is already a kitchen. Some of there are windows existing, and I would think that they may be openable windows. I can't give you that guarantee here, but there are existing windows in that rear elevation. They're probably opening, and I think that kitchen that's proposed would be reasonable to give them an opening window. They propose to use it as a serving hatch, but if they hadn't labelled it as serving hatch and just an openable window, it could operate in the same way, allow people to pass food out to a customer.
Councillor Wilson first.
Thanks, Chairman. Katie sort of stolen my thunder a bit, but if you look at the relationship where the bar area is, it's quite away from the serving hatch. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem. I think it's likely to be used in the way that Katie suggests because it's coming off the kitchen.
Thank you, Councillor Ward.
I concur with that assessment from Councillor Wilson. Having now looked at it, there's a big separation. You've got the fire exit. If you can bring it up, please. Close as you can. Close you can. You can see, again, where the kitchen is, it is separated. I mean, the only condition that we would say maybe suggest that serving hatch used between certain hours, which doesn't impede the use of the 9 till 2300. But let's say you use the serving hatch just for serving food, it shuts off at a certain time, and that may be something, so it wouldn't really interfere with any of the neighbours.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. I do think that we're encroaching on other areas here with licensing. That's my personal feeling. And so I think it could be dealt under licensing. And I think we do have to give sufficient weight to the ward councillor's explanation that this is very much needed. So unless anyone else has got anything to say, I think we should go to the vote. So I need a proposer. Councillor Shaw, that makes sense. And the seconder, Councillor Ward. Thank you. Those in favour, please indicate. Okay, thank you, members. That is unanimous. And with that, at 16 minutes past 9, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much for all your contributions tonight. Thanks for your help.